Hi guys, I know it's been quite a while. This is your guy Guest75 again from Mobile Tech Info, and today we're finally gonna take a look at one of Sony's most important phones, the Xperia 10 Mark II. So if we check out the box, we have some of the specs on the back. It says here there's a triple camera system, an 8 megapixel camera on the front. It's got a 6-inch Full HD stretched OLED screen, a 3600 milliamp hour battery, and it's powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 665. And for the first time in a long time, a mid-range Sony phone has IP certification back, so that means it's water and dust resistant. So let's take a look. So this is kind of a mini unboxing. Already previously unboxed the phone. I can just tell you it comes with the usual stuff, charger and a cable. And surprisingly, it also comes with 3.5mm headphone jacks. And what I can say in terms of promotions, at least in Holland, you get these wireless Sony earbuds as a temporary promotion for ordering the phone, so that's pretty cool. So let's take it out of the wrap package. I've opted for the white version, and I think it looks pretty good. Let me just remove the sticker. There we go, that's much better. And what I think about the design, I think it looks pretty cool, pretty sleek as well. So of course this is a successor to the 2019 model, the first Xperia 10, which I've also reviewed on this channel. I'll put a link down below to check out that review. And I can say physically it's almost identical. I think it's slightly longer and a little bit thinner, as well as a little lighter. Let me know in the comments below, by the way, if you really want to see a comparison between the old and new model. They both have a 6-inch screen on the front. And if we're diving in specs anyway, this is a 6-inch screen. It's Full HD stretched, but now it has become a screen based on AMOLED technology instead of LCD. Let me just peel off the screen here. That's a great sound. So yeah, it looks fabulous. It's really nice. In the front we have the aforementioned 8 megapixel camera. What's also pretty interesting, a big change from the previous model, is that below here, this is where the front speaker resides. So no more speakers on the top or the bottom, but on the front right now. It's not stereo, unfortunately, but front is always better than a bottom firing speaker. If we move on to the right side of the device, we've got our volume rocker up and down. And what's also returned from previous Xperias is the single fingerprint scanner integrated into the power button. So that's very convenient and something that was badly missed on previous Xperia devices as well. So the Xperia 1, the Xperia 5, and the previous Xperia 10 and 10 Plus, they all had the power button and fingerprint scanner split over two interfaces, and that was just it worked, but of course this is much more convenient. Then on the bottom we have USB Type-C, of course, with a microphone. If we move on to the left side, it's actually bare, and except for the SIM tray. So this is the same, I think, as with the previous Xperia. You could either put in 2 SIM cards and use it as a dual SIM phone, or you could put in 1 SIM card and an SD card expansion. Let's just dive into the specs. So we have the camera as well, and that's a triple lens system. And you see here the triple lens system and a LED flash and NFC. And it's a triple lens system, and it consists of a 12 megapixel primary lens, an 8 megapixel wide lens and an 8 megapixel telephoto lens. So that's a pretty cool camera system, and I will have to test that more extensively to tell you the results, but it sounds promising, and yeah, it's a very interesting feature. And like I said on the box, the hardware specs, what's driving this phone is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 665 CPU, coupled with 4 gigabytes of RAM. And what I like most about this phone is it has 128 gigabytes of base storage, so that's twice as much as you get on Apple's entry iPhone and Google's entry Pixel. So that's really a nice thing that Sony didn't usually do. They're usually stuck to 64 gigabytes. That was the case in the previous Xperia, but now they've really bumped it up to 128 gigs, and that's really nice. And of course, as I just mentioned, you are free to extend that further with a micro SD card. So if I just power on the device, you see it, I get instantly into the phone because of the return of the fingerprint scanner embedded into the power button. So that's really, really convenient. And as you can see, it's a very nice screen we have here. And the screen is of course 21:9 as well, as is customary with the new Sony phones. So that's yeah, that's quite an experience, I must say. Let me just lower down the screen brightness a little bit so you can see it. The device is running a near stock version of Android, running an Android 10, of course, the latest software by Google. So that's also very, very nice. What hurts me a little bit, but a lot of people like, is that with every iteration of the Sony software, it actually gets cleaner and cleaner. And a lot of the applications are disappearing. So I'm sad to see now, for example, that the album app that I really like and I'm very fond of doesn't run anymore on the new Xperias. So actually the only few applications that are left are the music app, which is just a must-have. It's like the most extensive and elaborate music app you can get on any phone at the moment still. And we have the Sony Agenda and the Sony keyboard. So that's one of my favorite Sony features, actually. The keyboard is really nice and very customizable. So speaking on screen and software, like I mentioned earlier, this phone comes with Android 10 pre-installed. So that of course lends itself the new capabilities of Android 10, and one of them of course is the let's see, the gesture navigation. You see now you have your regular Android navigation, which I personally prefer, but a lot of people, especially from in the older Xperias, were upset that they didn't get the gesture navigations in their older software from the Xperia launcher. Well, that has been changed with the Xperia 1 Mark II and this Xperia 10 Mark II. Let me also know if you want me to do a video on the Xperia 10, which is due to get an Android update to Android 10 as well, which could potentially also enable that feature on that phone. Let's see, we go to System, which is an odd place to put it actually. You would think it maybe would be with interactions and accessibility features. And then here with the gestures, you can choose system gesture, and you can see button navigation or gesture navigation. And when you do gesture navigation, you get the new Android gestures. So hold to multitask, swipe up to close an app. So we open YouTube, we can close it again. And you can see right now we've got the white theme enabled. I'm gonna put down the screen brightness again. And if we go to settings, and of course you can drag to go back, and then with accessibility we can do dark theme, and now you see everything is dark, which is I guess pretty cool. And what I find very interesting is I've yet to compare it, but I think the bottom bezel of the screen, the bottom bezel of the screen is a little thicker than it is on the previous Xperia 10. It is because it houses, of course, a speaker, but that is something I will need to verify once I have these two compared to each other. So speaking of the screen, of course it's 21 by 9. We have a new app here from Sony, which I think looks pretty interesting. And I think that's some kind of shortcut you can create with split screen. So let's see, we can do YouTube and oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, okay. So we have YouTube and Chrome on the bottom, and that's automated. So that's a very, very cool feature. And of course we have AdSense, which I barely use because as you can see, it's not really that responsive and that easy to use. But from here you also have again the multi-window option that you can choose. So you can swap windows as well. And let's see, you've preset ones, and of course you have all your apps here that you can access as well. So I have to say it's all right. And of course, 21 by 9 aspect ratio screen is perfect for multitasking. So as far as screen quality goes, it's I'd say it's pretty good. It's an AMOLED screen, so you can see the blacks are very, very dark. Everything is very sharp. I think you're coming up to a pixel density of 457 by the top of my head, which is really nice looking. So if we go to something like Netflix and we actually choose a movie, let's see, do we have a movie here? Extraction. Okay. You see that it covers everything because it's a movie format. So it's 21 by 9 cinema aspect ratio. So it's really cool that Netflix supports this, and it's very, very nice extra functionality that you have on this Xperia 10 Mark II. And of course you already had that with the original Xperia 10, but I must say the quality is enhanced even more in terms of contrast because of course it has now an OLED panel. Okay, that was kind of a weird look. I think it also has the screen functionality, I believe. Well, it should have actually. I know some phones, some Android phones have this functionality enabled, that you can still watch a video when you get outside of the application. So yeah, Snapdragon 665, what can I say about multitasking? It's not super impressive. I guess it does keep applications open just fine. So it should be adequate, but nothing really special amongst its peers in this class. I think I opened some other games. Let's have a look at some games. Let me see. This is more of a feature flight. It's always a game I have on this channel that I play on phones that I review. And what I like about this game, it's they do a lot of updates, so you can see as well this game has been adjusted for 21 by 9 aspect ratio. And again, the screen just looks fabulous. Let's just get into some action. Oh, that looks pretty good. Let's skip that. Wow, that looks very impressive. Responsiveness is also pretty good. Sound is pretty intense. And of course, viewing angles are extra important when playing games. Reflection could be a bit better, but it's still pretty good. Phone comes with Gorilla Glass 6, by the way, which is I think the only one in the mid-range class that has that. That's also pretty solid by Sony. So yeah, again, pretty impressive. I am really used to those other keys, guys. It's the gesture navigation in Android 10. I still have mixed feelings. It was already awkward in its first iteration, and now it's just a plain iOS ripoff. I guess it works alright, but Android keys is more my thing. So I just had to put those buttons back, guys. We're just gonna take a look at the camera now. And the camera quality, I'm still yet to test it, though I am sad to say that there's no more camera button on the mid-range Xperias. I believe the Xperia 10 also didn't have that, correct me if I'm wrong. Let's just look at if we can get like a nice photo. This fussy bear here. I do have to say the room is not that well lit at this moment, so it should, if it comes out a little fussy, you can immediately see if that's the lack of aperture in the camera. So what you can do to switch between the lenses is just press this button right here. So if I do 2 times, then I'm zoomed in, and if I do 0.6, you can see I have the wide angle lens here. So that's also pretty impressive, and makes the camera very versatile, and that makes it a pretty I guess interesting alternative to the likes of the Pixel 3a, although I think if I'm correct, it does probably have better camera quality overall, but this is more versatile, just like the Samsung phones. So I'm talking about the A30, the A40, the A51. But something this phone has that those phones don't have is a proper Snapdragon mid-range processor, which functions a lot better than those Samsung Exynos processors. So we have here our settings. So if I just check that out, let's see. So you see here we have a maximum image size of 12 megapixel. Let's see different effects that you can use. You can use the volume knob as zoom. So pretty basic stuff. It's got a built-in QR reader. Oh, I think I pressed a little too fast there. We also have video, of course. And with video, we also have our settings here, I believe. So we have the format that we can do, H.264, H.265, if you want that. And of course, here are the video sizes. We can go up to 4K at 30 FPS, which is pretty nice. And of course, if we go back to camera, we have the different camera modes here as well. So we've got a dedicated night mode, portrait selfie mode, and of course the Sony dedicated manual mode, which is pretty nice, which lets you do a lot more with, of course, brightness, ISO settings, autofocus fixes. So that's very nice. And what I also like is we're in the Pro mode now, and if I go back, um, the camera app will actually remember the last mode that I used here. So now I've used the Pro mode, and I can switch right back to Pro mode. And if I go to another mode, so let's say I do the creative effect mode, it lets you play with effects and stuff like that. I can actually go back, and then you see here the last other mode that I switched to. So that makes the camera experience very fast and fluid and easy to understand. And you see in the auto settings that it sees that it's a little darker in the room right now, so it auto scene detects the settings. I think that's a feature that's already been on the Xperia for a long time. I think ever since the first Z, and other brands have then, of course, attributed that to AI processing. What I think is just a setting that any manufacturer can do nowadays. So battery life I would still have to test, but I do have to say it has a thinner, slightly longer body than the Xperia 10, the one from last year, but a much larger battery. I think that one was about 2700 or 2800 milliamp hour battery, and this one is 3600. So coupled with a very frugal Snapdragon 665 when it comes to battery processing or drain, that should amount to pretty good battery life as well. So yeah, overall guys, the Xperia 10 Mark II, my first impressions, I think it's a pretty solid mid-range phone. I think in Europe it costs around 369 euros. I think in the States it would be translate to about $349 or cheaper probably, as everything is pretty expensive here in Europe with taxes and everything. And I think for the Xperia 10 last year was alright, but not really anything special. But this really has some nice features to set it apart if you compare it to the heavy hitters, the A-class from the Samsung phones, the Motorola One series, even the Nokia One, Android One devices with their updates. It really has some nice hardware features not found on those phones. So first you have that 21:9 aspect ratio, and that might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it's still a distinctive feature. But what's nicer is that it has one of the nicest OLED displays also that you can get in the market, plus that IP68-65 endurance that is also somehow been eliminated from a lot of these mid-range models, and a feature best bestowed on high-end phones. So I gotta say, it's a pretty solid device overall, solid package. One thing, of course, that always hurts me with Sony phones is that they're letting go of their Sony-ish functions more and more. Although I do have to say, this is the first time I actually tried it. Of course, on my own Sony phones, I always have these nice themes that I can use to customize the phone, you know, to make it look different. And actually, what I found is the original Xperia themes. So if we go to wallpapers, you can actually use those interactive wallpapers. So here I have the spring one for example. So see, it says like it's older, and if I can set it for both home screen and the lock screen, and then you see I get this really nicely animated wallpaper from an older Xperia device. So that's, I think, a pretty nice thing that they kind of made those wallpapers compatible somehow, and that you can still use them. So you still have those cool unlock animations if they have those. So that's what I have, and I also have one that's working slightly better to my opinion. So there's this one, also looks pretty nice, and also with a different lock screen and a different lock screen animation. So that's yeah, I think that's pretty cool that those still are somewhat compatible, not completely, but it looks pretty cool. Overall, what can I say as well? The Snapdragon 665. I would have liked to seen a more powerful processor, but you see that they really had to cut some costs and put it elsewhere in this nice screen and the IP certification. And the 665, it's slower than the 670, of course, that you have in the Pixel, or the 675 that you have in the Motorola phones. But it's on par with the Nokias that also use the 660. I think the Nokia 7.2 is one of the phones you can compare with this phone. Um, and of course, you have the Samsungs, which are somehow, I don't know, Samsung Exynos always used to be some of the fastest processors you could get. I remember when the S9 came out, they had to down tune the Exynos processor to keep the experiences the same across the Snapdragon and Exynos models. But now their Exynos somehow, especially their mid-range processors, have gotten behind. So they're not nearly as powerful as a 660 or a 665. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. So guys, with that I'd like to conclude the video for now and coverage on this phone. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see in an upcoming review, or if you would like to see a comparison to the old Xperia 10. And as well, you know, things like gaming, if you want to me to explore that, just let me know. For now, I'm gonna have to say I'll see you guys next time, and thanks for watching.